Hi, this is Adrian Duncan, and I'm going to explain about how to do weekly horoscopes. As I've mentioned before, the way you do sun signs, you put the sign in question on the ascendant, make an equal house horoscope, take the ruler of the sign and follow the motion of that ruler. See if there's been any important aspects. And if you're dealing with the weeklies, what you're generally looking for is any major aspects that happen during the course of the week, which reflects on the ruler of the sign in question. And what I thought could be interesting for this weekly explanation would be to look at the last week, or the second to the last week of July, because this was the time when Mars finally moved out of Libra. Mars had been retrograde in Libra since December 2013. Normally it goes through a sign in 2 months or less, but in this case, because it's been retrograde, it's been in the sign for 8 months. So take a look at this. You can see that Mars is in Libra here at the beginning of the week, on the 21st of July. And the thing about Mars in Libra, it rules Aries, and so in Libra it's said to be in exile, and a planet in exile just can't do what it wants. When you're doing sun sign astrology, you have to know about how each planet is in each sign. There's 144 combinations, but you're just dealing with the personal planets really: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, which rule the 12 signs, traditional rulers. So each of these planets has a specific kind of behavior in each sign, because the sign modifies the behavior of the planet. And a planet in its own sign, which is said to rule, like Mars rules Aries, or Venus rules Taurus, or Sun rules Leo, or Jupiter rules Sag. When it's in its own sign, it can decide. It's on its own territory. It's like your home. And so if any other planet comes into your sign and you're at home, obviously it's you that dictates how things are going to be. You can decide things. But if you're in the opposite sign, it's other people that decide. So for both Aries and Scorpio, because Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, for Aries and Scorpio, when this 8-month period when Mars was in Libra was a time when they just couldn't really decide anything. It's the other person that decides. It's Venus that decides, because Venus rules Libra. And for a planet, for a sign like Scorpio, which likes to be in control, it just isn't good when Mars is in Libra. In fact, Mars is in the solar 12th house of Scorpio in Libra. So not only is it weak, but it's like the 12th house is connected with being isolated or lonely or ineffectual or your own worst enemy or something like that. So there's been an 8-month period right until the end of July when Scorpios were really in a bad position, not least because, if you remember from the other videos, Mars has been in April, it was square Pluto and opposite Uranus, and basically this was an emergency month for Scorpio. But look what happens during the course of July. At the beginning of the month, of the week in question, Mars is in Libra, but it's moving at about a little less than a degree a day. So very soon during the course of this week, Mars moves into Scorpio. And what a transformation that's going to be for the Scorpio, because it's like Mars has come home. Now it can decide things. Now Scorpio finds its strength. It's no longer hiding away underneath the parapet, hoping to avoid trouble. Now, actually, Scorpio may be looking for trouble. And true to form, it's actually going to meet, by a square aspect, it's going to meet Sun, Moon, Moon, new Moon, and Jupiter. So Mars is going to be, the big aspect, I think, would be Mars square Jupiter during the course of this week and the week after. And Mars in Scorpio is incredibly uncompromising. So Scorpio's gone from being compromising to uncompromising. And then it meets Jupiter, and Jupiter's so convinced it's right. Jupiter in Leo is like don't tell me what's right or wrong. So Mars suddenly confronts Jupiter. And actually this was the time when Europe, which hadn't been making any kind of sanctions against Russia, suddenly came out with a whole bunch of sanctions which were really tough, and that was very predictable because of the Mars Jupiter. You're willing to take a fight. You're willing to take a battle. So, how might we describe this for the week in question for Scorpio? So, for Scorpio, the week starts with Mars in Libra, but it ends with Mars in Scorpio. So suddenly the Scorpio that's been all polite and willing to go to compromise is no longer willing to compromise at all. And you can see that Mars is approaching the square to Jupiter. It's also, Jupiter's together with the Sun. Mercury's soon going to join Jupiter, even Venus will. So Mars is actually very much on its own, but very strong. So you're going to need to give some kind of a good advice to Scorpio. And of course, you talk about this extraordinary transition that's taken place after 8 months of feeling left out of the picture. You discover your personal power and you're willing to fight. So that's the end of that sort of diplomat, and now you're prepared to take an ideological confrontation. And the reason it's ideological is because Mars Jupiter is very much connected with doing what you think is right, and also being very upset about injustice. So you might go on to write, expect to come up against authorities, because the 10th house, the solar 10th house, represents authorities. And they're very powerful. Sun is powerful in Leo, and Jupiter is always kind of powerful. Expect to come up against the authorities that are incredibly sure of themselves. They're sure of themselves because of the Leo and Jupiter. And if possible, keep any resistance invisible. I guess it's a good idea a Scorpio is good at hiding things, so Scorpio doesn't agree, but it might be wise to not make a big fuss about it, because there's a lot of opposition from the Sun and Jupiter. So that might be my advice. It's best not to argue, just know within yourself what you want. That might be right. Maybe, most likely though, they're going to come up and have a really big discussion with people who are become authorities of one sort or another and want to rule the show. So Scorpio's not going to like that, because it's going to be repelled rather by people who are full of themselves and proud, etc. So that's a little look about an important transition week which would affect Mars-ruled people, Aries and Scorpio. So I hope you enjoyed the weeklies. A lot of work goes into them. Subscribe, get next week, get next month, get next year, get tomorrow. And encourage me to keep on writing. Thanks very much.